Hello everyone. Happy Thursday. Today we're going to learn about motor learning and practice and feedback and guidance and how to promote motor learning in our patients. My name is Lily. I'm a physical therapist and I love neuro. So today we're going to talk about these awesome concepts. So let's review what is motor learning. So motor learning is a change in an individual's ability to perform a motor task that is inferred from a relatively permanent improvement in performance as a result of practice or experience. Now, there are some elements or principles of motor learning. So we have that skill acquisition derives from a lot of practice. We have the active participation of the subject, and we have meaningful goals. Now, how can we optimize motor learning or the learning of motor skills in our patients? So that's what we're going to talk about, 3 components that we really use during our sessions to promote motor learning. And that is feedback, practice, and physical guidance. So let's start with feedback. So we love cueing, giving feedback, right? We're always telling our patients how they did. Now, sometimes feedback can be detrimental, and there are 2 types of feedback. So there's the extrinsic feedback that's outside. So that's the one that I am giving to the patient. And that is intrinsic feedback, which is coming through all the cognitive processes inside of the patient's brain that they're just going to lead them to learn and detect like errors and things like that. So sometimes if we give too much feedback, we might interfere with their ability to recognize errors or just like detect things that are going on in that skill that maybe we can correct, but if they correct them themselves, it's going to be a little bit more meaningful. When we're learning, we go through different experiences inside of our bodies, and one of them is like if we're doing something that doesn't seem right. Let's say if we are, I don't know, I'm going to give you an example. When I am, let's say, golfing, like a Top Golf or something like that, like I can feel like when I hit the ball, like in a weird way. And like that is that kind of feedback that is intrinsic. So then the next trial, I'm going to try and modify that and maybe hold the, whatever it is. I'm sorry, I'm not a golfer. In a different way. So we're making all these adjustments when we're learning. And that is intrinsic feedback, that intrinsic learning, right? So if we're always giving feedback, we're not letting the learner solve the motor skills. Now, we're supposed to give feedback at the beginning, right, of learning a motor skill when we're guiding them through the learning. But then we're supposed to do something that's called fading feedback. So that's literally as it says, we're just starting to fade the feedback as they start getting better, okay? So just in general, a number of studies have shown that during the practice phase, reducing feedback slowly, right? You're just not gonna do it from a moment to the other, right? You're fading the feedback can result in more effective learning than presenting feedback after every trial, okay? Now, extrinsic feedback for motor learning after stroke. What's the evidence? So again, the evidence says providing patients with feedback on less than 100% of the trials may enhance learning. We want our patients to detect the errors, modify We want the patients to use their cognitive processes to detect what's going on. What can they do better next time, without us just guiding them through all the trials, okay? So it is useful to provide summary feedback for basic skills, and then more feedback when you're working on those difficult skills. So that is okay, but always remember, fade the feedback as a patient develops a skill. So now we're going to talk about practice. So practice is the most important factor in retraining motor skills. If we remember the principles of experience-dependent neuroplasticity, one says repetition matters, right? So we need to just push the practice. There's a lot of research studies that say that for learning, it takes a ton of repetitions. And I'm not talking about 100 or 200. I'm talking about thousands of repetitions, thousands of steps required for learning. So here is where you need to remember, practice is very important, and practice that is challenging, it is even better, okay? So now, there are different ways that we can make a patient practice. So one of them that is really, really important here is variable practice. So variable practice is when you're going to take a skill and then you're going to kind of invite the patient to perform it in different ways without losing the nature of the task. So if I'm going to walk, I'm going to teach him to walk like level ground, unleveled ground, like if you, let's say, go outside of the facility or whatever, like on the pavement, on the sidewalk. So things like that, that's variable practice. So in general, research says that variable practice may result in the greatest ability to generalize that new skill to a variety of conditions. Real world takes variability. We just don't walk on floor or level ground. We walk on carpet, we walk on pavement, we walk on the sand, we walk on, if we're hiking, on unlevel surfaces. So we need to vary the practice, okay? So variable practice leads to better retention than constant practice. Constant practice, I'm meaning the same skill in the same way, okay? Now, another thing that I really, really want to mention here, this is related to the dynamic action theory, and I'm not gonna tell you what this is about, but this is such an important thing to say, that when you have your patient practice a new skill, remember that newly learned behaviors are unstable. So meaning that you can change the way they do it because they're new. Now, once a patient learns a skill, either in a good way or a bad way, it's very, very difficult to change the way they do it. If you have them practice skills, let it be in a positive neuroplastic way, okay? So in general, practice. You can modify the practice, and remember that the interventions must be designed, the practice must be designed to narrow the gap between the patient's resources, meaning strength, flexibility, range of motion, tolerance, or endurance, and the requirements of the task. So let's say my patient has this amount of strength and this task requires a lot of strength. I'm going to modify this task. That way they're able to do it with their resources. So at the same time, let's say if this task takes a lot of whatever, I need to work on that specific skill to narrow the gap between both things. Okay, so narrow the gap between the individual's resources, what they have right now, and the requirements of the task. Okay, so that's how you're going to prescribe the practice, okay, or the skill that you're working with. Lastly, it's physical guidance. So this is just very quickly guidance versus discovery learning. So physical guidance should only be used when teaching a new skill, a new task. Okay, once they start learning, you start decreasing the physical guidance and fading the feedback. Now, you can also offer them, and this is bringing in the optimal theory, when they want feedback. So let me know if you want some feedback, or let me know if you want some tips or something like that. Okay. So last thing to close, how do we know if our patient has learned? Remember that motor learning is a change in someone's ability to do something, okay? Motor learning is observed in different number of sessions, okay? Your patient will be able to self-correct, detect errors, and they will be able to transfer that skill to a different setting, or meaning they're able to do like a variation of the skill. So that's how you know your patient has learned. Okay, so I really hope this was helpful. I love this topic so much because it's so good. I will see you next time in another learning video. Bye.